As of this recording, we are privileged enough to live in a world where there are not one, but multiple interconnected comic book movie universes. Marvel is currently the king, DC is rushing to play catch up, and Fox is doing whatever the hell it is that they want to do with the X-Men. While these things are great, let's rewind the clock back. Let's go back to before Iron Man kicked off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to before the X-Men had their first iconic fight with Magneto on Ellis Island, even before Spider-Man swung across the screen and blew all of our collective monkey minds. Let's go back to a time when a certain obscure vampire hunter changed comic book movies forever, and we will find out why some motherfuckers just always want to ice skate uphill. Ladies, gentlemen, and daywalkers, today we're talking all about Blade and why it's the most important Marvel movie ever released. Let's do this. Blade made his first appearance in the comics in Tomb of Dracula number 10 on July 10th, 1973, as a supporting character created and written by legendary Teen Titans writer Marv Wolfman. Now, for the most part, Blade was a pretty obscure character among Marvel fans, and yes, he did have quite a few appearances in the classic 90s Spider-Man animated series, but if you had asked anybody around the street if they knew who Blade was before the film, chances are you would just get a big shrug. For starters, while we had already seen R-rated superhero movies before, most of them were pretty bad. And while I will admit that I do have a fondness for films such as Spawn, you can't deny that there is a certain amount of campiness in that film that is the result of being a product of its time. You see, kids, back in 1998, comic book films were not taken seriously. They were seen as a niche market for guys that lived in their mom's basement and were critically and commercially considered failures. In that year alone, we had Spawn, Steel, and Batman and Robin. And while Batman and Robin wasn't a box office failure by any means, because it grossed $238.2 million worldwide, it was so embarrassingly bad that Warner Brothers shelved The Dark Knight for over 8 years.
The Iceman cometh.
Blade was really the first of its kind, an R-rated superhero movie that took its source material and its audience seriously and was only interested in telling a great kick-ass fun movie. In many ways, Blade laid the groundwork for films such as Logan, Kick-Ass Deadpool, and other films that started appearing in our current R-rated renaissance. Speaking of laying the groundwork, I'm fairly confident when I say that if it wasn't for Blade, we wouldn't have the interconnected Marvel universe that we have today. While this may sound hard to believe, there was a point where big screen Marvel movies weren't that well done. In fact, at the time, the only film Marvel had given the green light to for a big screen release was Howard the Duck. Most fans today will know him as a character that showed up briefly in Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, but there was a moment where there was a Howard the Duck film, and well, the less we say about that film, the better. In a way, Blade was groundbreaking in the sense that it showed Marvel that yes, these characters can work in a modern day setting as long as you treat the source material respectfully, and you can have a person of color be the lead in a comic book film and it can be successful. Which brings me to my next point. Blade showed that you can have a person of color lead a superhero movie and it can work. It can be a great box office hit. While I'm personally excited to see how Black Panther will turn out, I have seen more than a few articles online proclaiming it to be the first film with a black superhero in it, and to put it simply, that's not true. Back in the 90s, there were characters such as Meteor Man, Blank Man, and like I had previously mentioned, Steel and Spawn, and if you even want to go farther back, in the 1970s you had Abar, the first black Superman. However, with the exception of Spawn and Abar, these were all played for laughs and considered box office and critical bombs. It wasn't until Blade came out that the studio saw that it was possible to have a black lead in your superhero film and it would work. What I find interesting and sad about this at the same time is that even after Blade showed it could be done, we've only gotten a small handful of superhero films that star people of color as the lead. Catwoman, Hancock, and if you want to count Will Smith as the lead in Suicide Squad, that makes 3. It's crazy to think that after all these years and having so many superhero movies released, only 3 of those films have had a person of color as the head of it. For all intents and purposes, Blade was a game changer. It represented a new direction for not only Marvel, but for comic book films in general. Gone were the days of the terrible 90s campiness and Arnold Schwarzenegger puns, and we started to embrace a more mature form of storytelling. They started taking these characters seriously. The fact is that Blade was a breath of fresh air that kicked off the comic book movie renaissance, all while showing studios that yes, it's possible to take these things seriously, and if you respect the source material enough, fans will reward you with our cash. Guys, thank you so much for checking out this video, and if this is your first time checking out my channel, I do discussions like this, I do reviews, I do different stuff. Check out some of my other content. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, found in the description below, and of course, there's the Patreon. Check that out if you want to support this channel. That is how I am able to keep this channel alive. Let me know what your thoughts are on Blade, and of course, I love you guys. Have a great week. Bye.